Hello, Americans. My name is Anthony Wall. I swear to God, I swear on the identity of everything that was, that is now, that will come. This is the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And it is not valuing truth to be used to hide for lies or to screen lies. And see, this is a style of logic and reason that has been prevented Black people. So we have to discern the hyper evidential distinctly from the evidential. I've discussed this in the videos. Black pupils, how we could discern. Nature is actually showing us this identity also of relativity slash hyper relativity that should not have been left out. See, where they have had the sciences abridged since semi ancient times, it was not the fault of anyone, as the names of countries A through Z, who were forced, tricked, or persuaded to counter things, to counter a singular thing called hypercriminal foreign influences. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a police force, I'm not a criminal, I'm not a judge. To have black pupils and whites of eyes and a semi, semi decent, which they're all abridged as we'll examine, which actually, for example, the history of James Madison and our founders, the one and his plan, and how they got George Washington to agree with it. It was also for us not to leave out how he was extorted and tortured and enslaved. Simply distinctly, our founders were. And then how they had to go out and make other founders out of nowhere. They had to counter extort at 13 locations in 13 colonies, themselves divided as themselves, and from other countries they warred, and they already had the breaching method they already had taken. Complete possession slash hyperpossession slash S over tactically over certain quality aspects in nature of names A through Z, even if as majorities, even if all together, even if as any powerful group, even if all countries grouped together. This breach method knew they would, it's what it sustained. It's going to stay self-valuing roles as systems, uses of names, tactical ulterior, from how nature uses difference, uses the difference of the human species volume slash as science, and the other species volumes because it's difference slash S. The group difference is plural. They come with a hyper singular difference, generating those plural differences. All exceptions in exception nature that to appear to be in demonstration of our and demonstration of other. They also come with demonstrations of the same thing, which is also relative to where and to how. It is capable of and does show us the difference between criminal and citizen's natures of positive and negative. And for example, a truth can be used for a lie. A truth can be used to screen a lie. Therefore, inclusions with lies. But who is telling truth or lie is possessed slash hyper possessed, the nature of debate regarding such. One of the key things about forgiveness is for the teller. And people of the Connecticut schools and interstates, intercities. This is a method that has had since before our founders were born. And it's the same problem there too. Not countries' names have possession over their. You see people that are charged or whatever, with the cultural, those same people have had roles with where and how they had groupings. They spoke about things like criminal justice, crimes, positives and negatives, charity together, humanity. They spoke about the sciences. They spoke about and speak about American history. At each age, a fact-achieving nature. You had tactically ulterior, communicated as the short words that we were actually supposed to communicate by now. That George Washington agreed to. That we would agree to. That we were supposed to have this by now. We're supposed to understand the plan of James Madison and how it worked. And not only do we not understand how it worked, that's necessary to understand what caused slavery. To answer that question, that they have to understand that breaching method was entrenched. So this has had remote uses of the Facebook pages and the policing of it of New Britain Superior Court. These are the family members of Facebook and people associated with them, and where they add placements. And it's nothing personal. This is why they have people attack leaders of companies' names and things like that on a mass scale. Because on a mass scale, there are a whole bunch of families through time, foreign and domestic, with mental health locations right on top of hospitals. The Institute of Living was founded on the campus of Hartford Hospital in 1822 in Hartford, Connecticut, with slavery still entrenched in North America and South America because it was still entrenched against everyone. It was a torture method, simultaneously it was extortion method, simultaneously it was a factory nature, slavery method, and or they would censor you. That's why and how it was a factory nature method that was extended. It was a part of that which is necessary to discern, where it is necessary to know that a semi-ancient breaching method sustained evil that nobody wanted rolls with, but no one had choices. So their motivations are not relative, where and how means to discern this are. And that's where forgiveness is relative too. You know how many times, how easy it is for people of country A through B and CDF and all that, and groupings to use names like Hitler, or like, in other words, George Bush. We're attacked out of nowhere because that identity of value progression, it designed before anyone in modern times, since some ancient times, used words like finances or economies. There were still roles with the torture, extortion, slavery method, and self-valued roles, or you're sensed. So everyone I went to school with will tell you this. And where there are exceptions, you'll see that they were faked into databases. Other ones, you'll see that they were planting evidences. It was only illusion of it. It was a faked exception, which is also critical because these are people involved with computers and their teachers. These are involved with the branches of government used remotely at countries A through Z, individually grouped and together, predicate acts with facts methods, distinctly grouped, but non-distinctly too, like switching names. The need for that is manifest, where and how they are used remotely, and it just happens to be three ways: manifest, identity, theft, fraud, slander method, because of the relativity of the Trinity. because of the relativity of the pillars simultaneously. The one identity of hyper simultaneous is grouped distinctly, is grouped as an identity of grouped identity of relationship to itself, that which is hyper simultaneous, that which revealed humanity with two eyes, that which revealed also why and how, as is why and how the with the as a scientific value, as its identity of relationship to itself and the value of that which revealed the birds with two eyes, the fish, quality aspects in nature, distinct but also non-distinct, and simultaneously, and also with the hyper simultaneous demonstrated to us. Also, that and how it is hyper native pure vaccines. So, Native Americans were fighting with Native Americans because there was problems coming through their own, because it's because of where and how it uses identity, where and how it uses instances, descriptions, names, descriptions, motivations for insidiousness with names next to or into databases with fake things used to screen foreign motivations or to blame them, to keep the hyper foreign screened. At country A through Z, this hyper foreign method knew that it would have to keep modern names A through Z, blaming other things, others, and or selves, and or they would be sensed. So we have the outline of a huge industry slash S that I can donate in a way that is tactical slash hyper tactical through the countries with nuclear weapons, and with exceptions, we could instantly convert them into sensors, just like computers try to mimic, because they're not being led by the hyper simultaneous. But in other words, they were designed mimicking human senses, human interface needs. And nature itself is demonstrating why this has to be, and because it is making more hyper traditional nature. The Constitution unabridged. To appreciate that, you have to appreciate the difference between the simultaneous, the sequential, and the just how distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneously, and further hyper simultaneously slash hyper simultaneously. We are nature. Positive and negative. They have criminal insidiousness natures of definitions of, readings of behavior, because they're behavior collusions, black pupils. For example, this breaching method employed remote uses at other locations and or at those locations, and the value of that inside the descriptions, inside the communications, and where and how between any individual group together and with the people next to it, everyone. This is a game like that. So to begin with, it is not personal against anyone. And this is people I don't know at all, like a Joshua Julian. He had his name repeated to me by a Mark Violet and a Ray Colo, who are two of the people involved on off the state capital and next to it. I never had anything to do with Ray Colo downtown Hartford, never ever. One time they tried to make a fake exception to make it look like he knew me, a Rick CM Paglione. And people that know my name, I don't know their name. I had nothing to do, and they try to make it look like an exception. In other words, these are people involved with judges and prosecutors too. Times collusions with names on all sides of the criminal on the World Trade Center attack. And me and people that were in the on all sides of the case in the Ninth Circuit Court, one of the cases next to it, next to the World Trade Center in the attack context that day, right before it. The judges had been shown papers that were proven later to have been post dated from inside the Ninth Circuit. There were names on all sides of that case, and since our rules with uses of attached fake words in other cases because of people roles with uses of investigators remotely, uses of instances, real and made up, and mixed with the made up ones. Per the relativity of, for example, why and how I noted that truths can be used for lies. And a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, a former standing chairperson on the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organization Act. He's one of the ones at the FBI involved with Hartford courts. And there's an Eric Burgess who took, I don't know what kind of picture he has on his phone, but it has something to do with people taking pictures with the military before the World Trade Center attack, the military, foreign and domestic, people, military with Kuwait, military with all these different countries, and our own, Mark Violet and Justin Klavinskis and Tim O'Brien and Andrew O'Brien have rules with some KKK black themed back of their car, confessions to me, and the roles with on body dumping spots, and people that had conversations with them when they walked. They've been involved with all sides in criminal and civil cases, with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, news, and the interbranch switching names at the same time, and they have roles with the prisons, the state corrections offices, and houses and names next to it, and the state judicial branch offices and houses and names are conjunctions and adjacents to it, rather, like the roads and the routes, and the relative identity, the ground's identity relationship to itself, and the simultaneously only increasing value of it, increasingly negative, where and how things like extinction and pollution are, and where and how simultaneously relative our insidiousness natures of positive treatments or descriptions of motivations, relying upon jobs descriptions as people as collusions who will change what people say when they know predicate acts like this. Now, WFSB is a Connecticut news location. They recorded, capacity demonstrated, confirmed. They have roles with the intelligence community next to their building, as names involved next to the Fox Connecticut News in Hartford, Connecticut, in the spots next to them, as people also involved with WTNH with digital crimes, with fake emails, including with child offenders, leaders of kids, and people associated with crazy abuses of kids' websites, and countering the women judges and people that work with Hartford Court, women involved with this, Eric Burgess, his confessions and requests for help. Also regarding how they have the family of a Dean Judd. And they have probation officers and people associated with the intelligence community, associated with, what's his name? A Dean Alford. I don't know what they told him yet. A Dean Alford. A Justin Klavinskis. A Justin Stryker. A Justin Klavinskis also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. I never saw them together. It wasn't even my grade. And I don't think either of them were. I never saw it, and I have never had a class with Justin Klavinskis. There was one quick exception. I saw him on a campus. That's because they need to make fake exceptions ahead of time, because those are people involved with planting evidences on my street from other parts of town. that are increasingly tied to murders and to criminally foreign influence uses of investigators, as people increasingly on off Hartford Hospital and the spots next to it, Ilo's Kitchen, and Tomorrow's Market, now one in Rocky Hill. They have roles with the intelligence community on off Hartford Hospital, as spots next to it. They have roles with names next to campuses, who have roles with medical corruption, identity theft, fraud, slanders, federal evidences crimes, roles with different natures of organized crime, different natures of organized crime bodies, including if they are unmarked police forms. So so they have it on. It has something to do with their roles with the fire department next to Trinity College and near my house. They have a Mayor Gold increasingly involved with it. Like a Mayor Gold is one of the people recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the people I don't even know the names of. And some I do, like a Joseph Dennis, a John Dennis. I don't know his sister's name, their family's name. I only had, they were nice, but they were used to pretend me to fake locations. I never had in Salaman campuses at all. A Joseph Dennis. His neighbors involved with people involved with child abusers, with principals of the kids, proven and further recorded, and further leaders of the kids. It has to do with how when they were kids, they had roles with predicate acts, with facts. And this is where and how they put everyone in faked and changed communications with each other. And then people get involved with other people's conversations dishonestly because they want you to need you to call them names. Because these are people involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, timed instances, roles, where and how the descriptions are. And they attach me to fake conversations and being in the Wethersfield police station as a kid and then as an adult. When I did go in there and I said something to the person with me who was communicating for me, they put it like I was in a communication with one of the Mendez brothers. These Mendez brothers have roles with people involved with child abuses of various natures, medical, sexual, intercultural, and intracultural too. In other words, they have the differences of their names interbranch, used with a pretend passions and emotions, where they have roles with readings of statutes and precedents with their lawyers too. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, Wethersfield police chief lawyer. That has something to do with a Mazzucato pastry in Rocky Hill at the corner of Elm Street in Rocky Hill. Uh, a Ray Clough and a Joe DeMoro and a Michael Kerr and Eric Oliveri and a Mark Violet. They have roles with the foreign and domestic military with them there. It has something to do with their roles planting evidences on campuses, predicate acts with facts, with teachers I had and classes I had with the people that weren't even in my class. We're planting evidence. In other words, also as roles with time to planting evidences on all sides of people's houses and the people next to them. So we'll begin the first campus I went to, and there's someone next to them named Christina Sioka. She's involved with people from Miami and Orlando, Florida, and interstates in the World Trade Center attack, and Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living, who have roles with child offenders, who attach little kids and their family members to faked and changed communications with themselves and others. She has roles with tactically, criminally foreign influence readings of American history values and of how to, and of reality, and as tactically delusions raw too. While criminally foreign influence is nothing personal. Her boss pretended he had conversations with me. They have roles with houses on Church Street in Old Wethersfield, with various natures of criminal enterprise, even with the former director of FBI, other agencies, and police forms associated with the name John DeMoro and a Joe DeMoro. They said there's a I forgot his name. The other people, and there's a Heather Hansen and a Bruce Hansen. I don't know. I've never had a conversation with Bruce Hansen or his wife. that is increasingly involved with. These are people involved with my fifth grade teacher, and other teachers I had with the morals, with involved with body dumping spots, increasingly tied to the people in classes I had, too, as people involved with federal criminals before they got caught who were pretending passions and emotions with them. They do little tricks with descriptions of instances that they create to put fake things in databases and have the people say things to make it look like it's true. Ugh. And they put fake motivations because the real motivations have to do with how they have different countries involved with them at Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College in Yukon. These families with this that reported expressed demonstrated confirmed that with a Dean Alford that a Justin a Joshua Stryker has been lying about himself and others and me. As people have been doing that behind my back since I was a kid. His roles with people on off the state judicial branch offices, conjunctions and adjacents to it also involve wire crime methods with the Wethersfield police and their roles with names at the corners of streets near me. Involve people that record, expressed them, confirmed their roles with predicate acts with facts and sticking illusions in databases for their conversations with their teachers and with their counselors and with the families that run the school resource officers. They have roles with overt criminal enterprises and private ones actually, where and how used remotely too. Our names on all sides in criminal and civil cases, in the interbranch forging names, switching names, valuing sequence shifts and fake things being stuck in databases as collusion slash S increasingly, where and how it is motivated for them to pretend not to realize that communicate that and how actually communication is to be appreciated and how being greater than, more finite than active relativity to what is said in ways that will not allow appreciation and using all excuses to get away with it. I don't even know what they stole, but they were doing something messing with my stuff when I was in third grade tied to this. They affected from people in another classroom. We're in the same class, but we're not in the same class. No, this is on a mass scale. This breaching method knew that nature would demonstrate things to us. It would show things to us. See, we have nature shows. So, and then, so now we're in Wethersfield, it's the first campus I went to. It closed the year after that. But the house is next to it. There's people, I never tried to contact of Finelli in my life. And the person he's reportedly married to is also involved with them with intelligence families along Route Walcott Hill Road who have been involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, where that's part of the problem, where there are countries that have been shared here and there since before our founders were born, and using phrases like criminal injustice together and shared secrecy. They have unmarked police forms they have criminally foreign influence roles with it by pretending they care about the identities of their titles. Tactical delusions rot too. They get away with it because the sciences are taught wrong. The nature of debate is instead employed to measure and maintain collusions with criminally foreign influence, communications in the name of our founders, even though they communicated for us to understand the plan of James Madison that George Washington then agreed to. It didn't even have to be George Washington. And we have not been honest about this yet because we have not been capable of it through our own or the differences of it as collusion, because that's also used to keep the hyperforeign from being demonstrated. So Russians and Americans torture each other, even though we don't need to, because that's only capable, you guys, to show that's what you taught the little kids. And or you guys pretend it's because they did homework or not. In other words, there was a Texas company. Some ways they did damage control. Some ways, both sides. And then through time, that's now they really want to defend their identity, not going to allow the adult who needs to go back and have examined what went on there. There's a Kevin Harris and his mother is involved with a principal who has roles with people that from other areas who have been planting evidences on my street, and they have rules of wire crime methods with the Weathersfield police and with the courts, interstates involved, and where and how overtly slash insidiously remote uses of the value of the differences of the identities of police forms, like state police, like the FBI, like the CIA, also brought up in confessions, real or made up, on Facebook. That's against the law to make that up. There's a Kelly Kesmerick. Her name was also brought up by one of the ones involved with the state police and the FBI and militaries, foreign and domestic, in ways that shows that their criminal competence is inseparable from what she said anyway. And that's roles with names tied to her that were planting evidences on off my house and all sides of it, and all sides of the houses next to me with the conversations. We're going to get to that because I had a teacher that repeated sexual things about one of the kids of one of my neighbors, and there was other there was other influences for them to pretend passions and emotions for a breaching method without even realizing it because they've been told lies about me. All exception nature too. That is also capable of being either use. There's use slash S that all capable of being. We have to go in order though. So there's a Ray Reynolds and involved with someone with the name, with a family with the name um, Harris, also involved with ones with the name Leahy, who have drugs and medicines crimes with kids, as doctors, who have been using investigators remotely. They have roles with crime scenes. They have roles with whiting forensics in Middletown, and they have child court cases used to lock collusions and self-value uses of fake things that were put in databases and or acted off campuses tied to that. And where and how really. In other words, oh, that I influence that or I influence that. In other words, they don't know why. In other words, what's actually recorded is tactical military, then they could have for discerned with all sides in criminal and civil cases, and or the interbranch and or the intelligence tied to them and or their state offices in the news at the same time. Everyone never stopped being used remotely. So it has something to do with unmarked police forms, unmarked titles uses, because they have readings of statutes. They give the benefit of the doubt at the last second to people based on what job they have, with degree, etc. Black pupils. Here, New York City, little kids. That that means if you're dealing with humanity right and capability with and passion right with education, you're going to be able to show a little kid how they can delineate the criminally foreign influence back human nature, quality aspects in nature, and delusions from the judges who have spoke. In other words, so Judge Napolitano, in many ways, seems to be a great man. Judges A through Z have failed black pupils. Fear. So, in other words, they have people who study things like war, who study things like politics, who study things like business, and they've been leaving things out regarding all those subjects. And the Constitution, unabridged in its appreciation of a hyper additional nature, it doesn't leave those things out. Nature doesn't leave those things out. And our founders don't leave those things out, but our founders are retold. And or they were deciphered by the breaching method, which was hyper sophistication here first. So they want to put a list of things relative to a clock and make a program based on other people's technology. Long haven't been valued. The sciences have been set back and abridged from day one. Intercampuses too. And the differences of that. So there are people with DACA that were DACA in the 90s and before the 90s. That have roles in the markets and the FBI and other agencies. Again, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw fact, nature, quality aspects in nature, and roles and needs in natures used remotely. Self-valuing use /S of all locations /S. The same way computers work. In other words, space means come out of nowhere when the species volume agrees to enable ourselves to better than free. Squeeze out means to overcome the tactically denatured Earth, its identity relationship to itself, and the means to overcome that has kept the suburbs tactically denatured, let alone the cities. When in other words, it's one thing to have individual leaders be able to do things like executive orders, other countries all equivalent. It's another thing to have the whole entire species volume on the same plan with it, and calling in and searching out, sorting what kind of things we're thinking up together, and being able to move. Okay, we're going to do this. Oh, wait. If we move the stream over here, though, in other words, nature has to lead. You have to go back and think about it, because if you pay attention to, it comes with its demonstration of what before modern religions, ancient pantheism / hyperpantheism, used prayer, not as a prayer, as a scientific method, where and how it asks us the question. We're supposed to be making sure that it's leading its definition of how to define what is positive or negative, or what's going to cause positive value, nature, progressions, acts, and nature, by appreciating its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that, inseparable from all parts of all things, individually, grouped, and together, and as the order of the finite, as the order of the active, as the order of the progressive, as its system with the constant variable. In other words, people. So, in other words, there's a Michael Emmett, and please, dear Professor Berger Sweeney, I've been begging for, because they've been planting evidences. They've been putting fake letters and changing and faking emails with the agencies, FBI, and courts before the World Trade Center attack on off Central Connecticut State University and spots next to it. They recorded, confessed, demonstrated, and confirmed a bunch of things, like their roles next to body dumping spots, like their roles with abuses of kids, consciously on and off campuses, planting evidences, methods, roles we're using remotely and having used remotely, having also, investigators in their campuses. So they have readings of statutes that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw, and there we have hyper-evidential means to discern this. So WFSB attached me to fake communications with themselves about the World Trade Center attack. They attached me to fake locations with themselves. They attached me to fake communications with others about the World Trade Center attack too. And they've been lying about me with people since I was a kid, pretending I had roles with doctors. As with people increasingly on off Trinity College and Central Connecticut State University, have been from different parts of Weathersfield planting evidences on my street with people I involved with wire crimes of Weathersfield police. A Weathersfield police chief Cintron 1 years ago. A detective Dylan, his partner, a guy who said was his partner. Um, Now these are and my people in my third grade class or second said it was demonstrated it's their rules with all these different countries. In other words, and even China, it's because they're keeping made in China. They're keeping that industry for themselves. Please do business with me, China. But please, first, before anyone does business, let me donate this. What does it have to be? The world will agree. If what kind of things would make Russia, China, America, India, and all the African countries simultaneously, in Iran, in Iran, and people next to straits. Of course, they are dire. The names of the sciences, therefore, the names of the people of the sciences are only allowed to be used abridged since semi ancient times. Prepare your minds, but for your hearts. Boxing. I speak it to arts. Boxing, martial arts, and wrestling. Some ways they share an identity, but some ways each of their identities is better is more proper for the analogies and the metaphors needed for the language to repair and to prepare this species volume science and this its method and means to reveal out of nowhere evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere. You guys want to keep attacks out of nowhere. Yeah. Suits and ties, counters, and exceptions as collusions. Before the foundation of modern nations, each a breach was cast more vast and yes, more deep. Um, See through each jeep. In other words, there's no game though. In other words, this is how we could do it. I'll donate a pantheism method, and this nature shows. But we have to be able to each individual. I'm going to show you something how individuals are prevented. So when I first went to that 1 year of kindergarten, I was already reading at 12th grade level, tested per a Texas company, and know how the book depository is one of the things that was reportedly associated with the murder of one of our presidents, the assassination of one of our presidents, and know how the Weathersfield Board of Education building and the name next to it has recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed ties with retired mayors from Weathersfield and with the house next to it and people associated with them, increasingly involved with body dumping spots and with people associated with abusers of kids, leaders of kids, and as people increasingly involved with the World Trade Center attack, with the World Trade Center names, with the ones next to it, and since. There are police that are refusing to identify themselves and trying to make fake exceptions. There are also confessions regarding that. And regarding, they brought up the name Scalora, but they didn't say the whole name. That's one of the crimes that's one of the predicate acts methods, one of the methods, a part of predicate act methods they have. So Weathersfield police have rules with state police of Connecticut and Whiting forensics before I was born, when I was a little kid, and since increasingly as roles with their family members and with the police forms associated with governors has something to do with the spots next to every place too, like next to where they build airplanes. Increasingly, Governor Malloy is recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. I don't even know him. He's with the new Connecticut News as East Hartford locations, involved with the Officer Magnanos, which is different from Manos. But he recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He brought up the name Stephen Manos, and he gave me a promise to appear. And then they switched and made all these different narratives. And what wasn't even given to me, he gave it to my mother at my house in Weathersfield. And he came with Weathersfield police. They was a state of East Hartford. And he had arrested me on, or he had made me walk to his car. Maybe walked down the stairs, made my arm touch his gun too. And he has a intelligence family with that name at Central, with women, men and women at Central Connecticut State University, involved with a whole bunch of people from Weathersfield with his name. There's a Jamie Caron, a Kevin Caron, and there's a Mark Caron involved with Danielle Perron and her brother, Thomas Perron. A whole bunch of people tied to them with medical corruption and religious spots, and people associated with mayors and leaders of the kids, involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, all kinds of natures of organized crime and roles, tactically delusions wrought while they're dealing with medicines and mental health and instances associated with that. They also have remote uses of celebrities and of sports figures with their descriptions of things. And with people, when they play, the agencies have an extent of consciousness recorded awareness of how they are and were used remotely, where and how they speak about serious things like murder and or about their motivations for it regarding and they have music playing. This has been because they have roles with all names, all sides of criminal and civil cases, and or the different interbranch. Because then they have to hide live progressions, hide what's actually recorded. Have hyper additional motivations at those locations and at other locations /S. Increasingly, for reasons past, reason active group, and to come. So Weathersfield police put me as a fake and changed communicate. I barely communicated with them on the phone ever, and never in person. And they already pretended me to fake conversations with themselves as a kid and as an adult. And the FBI demonstrably has roles of wire crime acts and methods with them, including with digital child defenders and roles with the women, because of where and how they're only using courts to keep people shut up. And everything they say that they're against, in other words, they pretend to be as a fake motivations. These are people increasingly out of state corrections offices, involved with people from my grammar school who weren't even in my class. And they will tell you this. See, they're playing a game. And they have the people who are professionals in the schools who had roles of predicate acts with facts, federal evidence, crimes when I was a kid. And it's nothing personal. They need to pretend this, and they've been doing it in the news. Also, increasingly, people involved with the uses of the word and people with formal identity, the law of jobs, and associated with them, uses of the words like adult are being used criminally, foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, as they did right in the news. Then they pretend, I don't see the evidence. They're hiding what they know is actually recorded. On a mass scale, they're pretending they're legitimately asking questions about documents, chasing evidences, uses of words like allegations. They're making allegations against people, making allegations about things that are actually recorded, and then they're putting fake things and pretending it's personal when the people say they made things up. This is a hyper monopoly. It is a monopoly / hyper monopoly on reason. So they have remote uses of the Facebook pages of the news and of the courts as their roles with passion crimes because before the World Trade Center attack, and I don't know the what do you call family? People with the name there's intelligence family with the name and foreign intelligence families associated with someone with the name Doobie, a rich Doobie, per a Ray Clow and a Joe Tomorrow, and they have something to do with West Hartford. Apparently, they had a picture of me taken in West Hartford to make it look like I hung around with them. In other words, make a fake exception. They did that too on both sides of the on all sides of the with people on all sides of the community center in Weathersfield and the schools involved. And they have personal and professional roles with the rest of the child abusers they brought up. So Whiting Forensics increasingly has names that have been planting evidences and fake motivations and have been coached to it by state police there, but also by other agencies and foreign and domestic military associated with themselves. All kinds of psychiatry corruption. The UN is also involved with this. See, but we can convert these groupings of humanity to sanity and to logistical securities. Temporary for means to do that, to make lasting needs to do that, not even be there. And because means to cause evolution's fruits and gifts, means out of nowhere, already being and having been revealed. One thing you have to do is look at it. So I'll put a whole bunch of games we could play that come with the pantheism / hyperpantheism. And they're all designed to overcome this tactically denatured earth, its identity relationship to itself and the value of that. We want to punish people for hurting the environment. Punish them by calling it nature. Don't call it the environment. It's nature because we only have an extent of the complete identity of nature to discern. But we have its nature. We have a portion of its identity. And wherever there's the slightest bit of existence, its complete identity of relationship to itself and the only increasing value of that is inseparable. There are three ways increasingly valued. And then three identities of zero and one became simultaneously / hyper simultaneously. But the simultaneous in all things are hyper simultaneous nature. We could discern this using the science of pantheism / hyperpantheism. The English was revealed to teach. Someone must teach free speech. In other words, to prevent, in other words, so they have wire crime acts and methods, and they attach little kids to fake and change words. They put fake motivations for it. A Mike Kerr, a Joe DeMoro, and a Ray Clow said they have roles on Morgan Circle and where they put up that sign years ago, planting evidences with people with foreign and domestic, involved with the Marines too, involved with them putting fake things about themselves and others in databases, and with their professors and teachers involved. And there's people with the name Zano. There's a Jack Zano that the news demonstrated is involved with them. And it's all along Route 3, which is one of the conjunctions and adjacents to the state judicial branch offices. Weathersfield Pizza also has wire crime acts and methods with a Steven Stocco and with other people associated with them, with Weathersfield Police, and with identity thefts and frauds as people enter campuses putting fake things in databases, as people involved with Central Connecticut State University too with this. Fake ties and fake natures of ties to people, fake behavior, why they pretend they like them or not. In other words, I don't know him. when he was in my class, in a math class, I never took part with a bullying of him that Paul Zane when Ray Clow did, and it looked like it was directed and it was recorded to an extent. It was proofs that it was directed. That's, in other words. So in other words, and there's a Maria Vizino that is one of the names. A Maria Vizino and Joshua Julian is one of the names of Mark Violet. Is one of the ones from other areas that sought me out. It was like spying on me to look for fake things. People from Hartford Hospital have been involved with investigations, investigators, and names next to them. A whole bunch of names tied to Hartford Hospital, spots next to it, involved with Wethersfield names, interbranch and foreign, overt criminal enterprises and private ones with grammar school kids, but and middle school kids and high school kids as the ones on off Central Connecticut State University. Also, in the difference of that, who's involved, and then they're bringing other people's names into it. And with the news at the same time, Planting Evidence says collusions at crime scenes with child offenders still, leaders of the kids. I couldn't believe that they would get away with such. It's because they have roles with the people who investigate everything, with the types of counters to everything. This breaching method assigned roles with uses of differences, the way they told you to speak about difference, not how nature shows you difference, black pupils. Fear. So humanity wanted to open up from since yesterday, not as is, and not with you guys speaking black and white the way the breaching method tells you to. And we're going to learn how many different types of white there are, because black pupils. We're going to make a lot of movies and a movie company. But we have to have someone who believes. I mean, who doesn't, who won't pretend to disbelieve because this is evidentially recorded. Or if they want to pretend to disbelieve, do it honestly. There's a difference between if someone has a right to pretend they don't believe someone online, if you're doing it and the person's mentioning specific predicate acts, let alone child abuses, elderly abuses, and abuses of middle-aged people at the same time, sickly distinctly to measure and maintain. How sickly the non-distinctly is left out with reactions to it and or with non-reactions to it. And descriptions of reactions where they're setting up locations. You guys are communicating to little kids since they're in grammar school that there's people confessing, demonstrating, record. They use corners of streets and buildings and asking questions to strangers right when they come there to make it look like they had conversations. That's how they confess things. So increasingly, people associated with a former mayor Gold and other mayors. I don't know the names, and when they're in other words, even next to the state, their roles with spots next to the state education building. And there's a Mr. a Michael Emmett, who's one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by the principal child abuser in a bunch of messages to me, and then a bunch of messages he left to other people. He also said a whole bunch of fake things with the principal child abuser. And there are more roles with untimely deaths that brought that up to me in the first place. And they hid that from you guys. There's a guy with a red pickup truck who had kids playing soccer in the field across from my street from my house. He's recorded. He's involved with people next with roles with uses of the state judicial branch offices, as roles with people involved with foreign and domestic medical families who are really sick together, and they have criminal enterprises and private ones involved further with abuses of your kids. They're putting fake things in databases. They're putting their kids and you guys into faked and changed communications with yourselves and with everyone around you guys. You guys should fear God to let them hide and plot. I rap a lot. So a Leahy family and a Harris family has roles with a Ray Reynolds as one of the ones involved with the wire crimes and planting evidence. I never saw him on my street outside of a car. I don't think I even saw him. I never saw him outside of a car on my street. I barely ever saw him, Ray Reynolds. They're increasingly needing to hide live progressions from their roles, putting fake things in databases at every campus and the differences between it, where they have employed treatments of negatives and positives in the syntax Well, I worked there for years. In other words, you failed. Best campuses and the worst ones. So it's nothing personal. Ray Reynolds will tell you. We had we had a short conversation. I was only polite to him when I was in kindergarten. The intelligence community and foreign bodies are increasingly demonstrating they're using him and having used him with confessions. He's in a pattern of confessions. I shouldn't have to use the names of the kids at campuses I went to have because you have little child offenders leading the kids. Get the Michael Emmett on paper with the Weathersfield police chief now. Fake branches, bow. So I went to the next the class campus. Increasingly, I don't know those people. Increasingly, roles of people putting fake things in databases and tied to the state judicial branch offices in this Weathersfield pizza. They said there's a Michael Greco, something to do with the Michael Greco narratives of the natures of the investigators. These are people that live next to the campuses too through time, involved with a whole bunch of body dumping spots, murders, um, the sick things. Even if some of that stuff is made up, these are people leading up to the World Trade Center attack in that context and sense. So, in other words, it's people. The O'Brien family told me they go back and forth. They have something they do with the foreign bodies. They go back and forth and make people. Oh, this person said this about you. That person said that about you. But sometimes too, they even do that fake. They're not even faking. They fake that to make it look like people were groups and they went through some kind of social issue together. These are people involved with identity behavior racketeering. Increasingly, people that went off were on schools that my father went to that were child abused. They're involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting evidences, has collusions against people. It has something to do with their roles with the corners of the streets, the corner of Southstein Highway and Route 175, but Southstein Highway and Town Line Drive has a Kerr family involved with foreign and domestic medical families and with military families involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones in news, planting evidences, identity thefts and frauds and slanders under the guise of intelligence with judges and prosecutors, also planting fake motivations at that corner through time. As their roles next to has something to do with their roles with the Parks and Recreation, the Weathersfield town offices. These are people involved with the Afghanistan war, with the Iraq war, with their roles with criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw uses of names associated with the World Trade Center, and with all sides in criminal and civil cases relative. These are people from Connecticut involved with the names in Manhattan in the Ninth Circuit Court right next to the World Trade Center towers, involved planting evidences through time interstate, has something to do with their roles all along Route 3, which is a conjunction and adjacent to the state judicial branch offices. The same thing with the state corrections offices. Joe DeMarlo increasingly recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, planting evidences with foreign and domestic military. And with Weathersfield police, they had conversations with as kids. Then those same ones that attached me to fake conversations with themselves as a kid, and I was an adult, and they did that too. The other kids, they had that they did go and communicate with them. They gave affidavit. They wanted them to put fake things in conversations. They had people bring up fake things. I didn't even respond to those conversations. They're planting evidences because they're using and having used through time all the natures of investigations remotely, criminally foreign influence. So they have all natures of court cases regarding kids. And even reportedly a kid shot another kid with one of the locations involved with the people with the name Cololo and as one of the adjacent conjunctions to the state judicial branch offices as the people involved with that with the police chief Cintron through time and a Kevin Dillon and Anna Dillon and how she switches it sometimes to Annie Dillon and her roles with corners of streets and where she puts her real estate signs. She has roles with the people at Central Connecticut State University too. Increasingly, that on off the news locations planting evidences as collusions with the people interbranch in all sides of cases, overt criminal in private ones. So that the Afghan leaders and kids, a kid of a Afghan leader recorded capacity demonstrate confirmed. They have roles with people associated with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with Los Solitos, with houses and other gangs associated with houses next to Trinity College. Even if they're police forms, they're involved with the names near me, who brought up made all these confessions at once from other areas tied to them, and they make confessions tied to that because they're planting making it look like I knew them growing up. They tried to take a picture maybe to make it look. One time I walked by Robert Rodriguez when I was a kid on Route 3. I had no communications with him. He was communicating with Joe Demaro. He's involved with a Pruzzi family, people associated with parks with kids. There's someone on here that says that on posts on my YouTube. One of them said he's associated with Judge Napolitano. But that before that and through time, he mentioned his roles in Wethersfield Police. He keeps using the name Ed Powell. I don't know if that's one of the Wethersfield Police involved with the switching names. They have 3 officers that use the name McGee on different police reports, and then they confessed that they only have one officer named McGee to me and to others. To my mother, so that's how they're threatening my mother. And then I threatened. The only time I ever yelled at my mother in my life is in the context right after my father died, 3 months after, with this Kevin Dillon made a nonverbal confirmation and demonstration to me, as he did before, years before the World Trade Center attack, because it was the relativity of people with that involved in lead before in a 2006 district court case in Connecticut. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, also non-verbally confessed, demonstrated, and recorded, confirmed to me. A whole bunch of people tied to him are the same people involved with the wire crimes with the Wethersfield Police and the state police and Whiting Forensics, who have rules with child offenders, overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and people involved with the news with identity thefts and frauds and further World Trade Center predicate acts. And they would rather have them treated as predicate acts rather than fix them and get me a name to respond to me. They also put me to fake. They also have criminally foreign influence uses of my name in writing at Hartford Hospital of other people's names. And now they have crime methods with that involved with people that are involved with threats on my street from other areas, associated with houses that live near me, associated with the military and the intelligence body. Like there's a Jamie Caron, and there are people with the name John Demaro and Joe Demaro, and people tied to them. They said that there's a Shane, someone with the name Shane from boxing, involved with them planting evidences on off Town Line Drive shopping center, and with that corner, with the buildings at the corner, the businesses at the corner of Town Line Drive and Saulstein Highway, have foreign and domestic intelligence families involved with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, planting evidences on and off campuses connected, identity theft, fraud, slanders, falsified police reports, planting evidences with judges speaking fake things into records. There's a Judge Smith, there's a Judge Killian. There are other judges before and after them involved. Increasingly with child offenders, the same names, roles with elderly homes and veterans homes. These are people increasingly, in other words, follow mandated law. That's what it tells you guys to do as police. You want to be a police chief, do it here. Man up for your police chief. And there's a Casper family that's also involved with confessions of Hartford Hospital's people who have roles with the people of violence on my street and threats with their doctor, putting fake things in databases with the Slahy family. There's a Lombardo family too. That Chris Walters and Ray Claw recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed have involved with themselves with federal evidences crimes. and with the conversations with they're putting fake things in databases with their teachers and professors behind people's backs. I think that, and with the news. So follow mandatory law for them. Um, 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 what's his name? Eric Oliveri confirmed this. I never saw Eric Oliveri in my life. Never, in other words, never had a conversation with his brother. Never had a conversation with verbally with Justin Stryker. He keeps affecting confessions to me, and then he non-verbally demonstrates as one of the people the next day because he's been lying about himself and lying about others with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin in a whole bunch of different countries. People, it has increasingly people. One of the things that ties these people are their roles with Korea. It's nothing against Koreans. Pretending to be against prejudice is one of the things the intelligence community does with their readings of statutes. They give them the right to get away with certain types of crimes because they're too expensive. But see, they have criminally foreign influence readings of those statutes, and that's right where they're leaking because they've been used criminally foreign influence. Increasingly, Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut, has roles with names in Wethersfield, Connecticut. They have roles of various natures of organized crime, acts, and names before they were in federal criminals, and insidious people before that was proven. They were blaming what those people were causing and doing on other things, others themselves, which was also simultaneously relative remote uses of all natures of investigations, investigators, and identities of perception, speculation, ingenuity, development, descriptions, programming. See, the hyper programming is here. You guys have to fix the faked World Trade Center attack predicate acts. You don't even have to say sorry. But we have to get there because there are more people involved. People from Saudi Arabia. People, in other words, there's a Joe DeMauro, a John DeMauro, a Claudia Scalora. That who said they have people with the name Scalora. There's a Claudia Scalora and a Subby Scalora. And there are other ones involved interstates and internationally with Central Connecticut State University and with people with writing forensics, with international bodies, including with sexual offenders and medical offenders, little kids, with the leaders of the kids. Mr. Abruzzi has roles with this. Increasingly, Sal Civiello is in with the year before that in fourth grade class. People tied to him to a Rich Dabrowski involved with the intelligence community, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw. I don't know them. The intelligence community is having them pretend other. In other words, and per the people associated with them with this, with the state police, like a Eric Jensen. I don't know his family knows my name. I don't know their name. He has a grandfather and people involved with the state police databases and locations along the Berlin Turnpike. Also, in other words, also with Chet Casper has roles with someone I don't know his name. I never had a class with Chet Casper. There's an Arita Swakey that a police a Mayor Gold's daughter, and that involved in others adults. They're putting in like the mother of Tim O'Brien and the father, in other words, of the intelligence community. Their roles with Hartford police forums and Wethersfield police forums, Rock Hill police forums. They're involved with the police forums, intelligence associated with Sandy Hook campuses, including a prison campus. People with the name O'Brien are involved with federal evidences crimes with that campus, with that campus. As people involved with this Ray Collo and a Joe DeMauro and people associated with the foreign domestic military and criminal enterprises off the state corrections offices and building and spots next to it. Increasingly as people involved with this, you know, taking pictures next to parks and at parks to pretend people know each other, fake exceptions where they pretend people lie, where they're liars. In other words, so Mark Violet has roles with a Justin Kovinskis and with two Jamie Crone. I don't even think they're related. Crone and two twin brothers, Mark Crone and Kevin Crone. But all three of those Crones, a Mark Violet, Justin Kovinskis, they have roles with military police in Central Connecticut State University in Britain and a whole bunch of different countries like Korea and people from Korea, people from Germany. They have black KKK themed military roles with my neighbors next to Central Connecticut State University and next to Trinity College. They've been planting evidences. Has something to do with their because they have the roles recorded with remote uses of investigators since pounding drums. So Native Americans could see that other Native Americans were acting wrong to it, no one knew how to react properly to. And James Madison came up with the best plan. And there are proofs that Native Americans agreed with that. Because President / Chief, this is to respect no, the Constitution unabridged is hyper native. If Native Americans fail in proper defenses of that hyper native abridgment, we're supposed to be able to discern it. And this is what you're going to discern as black actors and or as white actors, we're in how we're having the colors switched. And then in other words, we can make all all the negatives into positives. And it will work as long as we're checking to make sure that they're hyper positive still. And there's a difference between being transparent and hyper transparent. In other words, and we can do development means. In other words, to make sure that things are gonna go down because if we make logistical security, so nothing's gonna pop off because don't forget, since some ancient times there are means to discern. Not one country had possession of their name. There is much more that comes with this. Why and how actually there are suits and ties, counters, and exceptions who are still self-valued roles with qualities, aspects, in nature, of factual nature, of ground appreciation, nature, environment appreciation, while pretending other. Still overtly / criminally, in other words, little kids could discern that we have means way beyond with suburban infrastructure, and with little kids from the suburbs could discern we have means to help the people in the cities. They're in a trap clearer than day simultaneously. But see, that day that was employed effectively simultaneously with the color, with the witch trials, with the other laws, with the laws too came. You have to respect that, and you have to put it in. You can only discuss the certain things in context that were monitored by international companies and international countries, distinct countries, because they were fighting with each other. Well, see, the need for peace or war now never went away because the economy never went. The nature of negotiations stayed criminally foreign influence / hyper criminally foreign influence, pretending other too. as directed. The only reason our founders directed such is because they had to hide their roles with them with the Constitutional Convention, but they later declassified it. But you guys aren't letting you're lying about what you think is recorded or not, or I don't see it written. That's why they have that key thing restricted into both, hidden. They have other narratives for and descriptions of James Madison leaving out that torture, extortion, slavery method, that fact-cheating nature, identity theft, frauds, and slander method that was against everyone, rose against themselves. Otherwise, that body was censored, even if there were majority of people, even if there were majority of countries. This came from semi-ancient times. I pay your mind. So it was like one time they put a book. It was like one of the only interactions I had with the adults in that class. And and there was like a guy at a piano. I think there was more than one person at the piano. So when they said which one is different, I said, okay, that one is not. Then there was ones walking over here, but there was, in other words, something. It was like one that was the only one that was different because it was by itself, But she asked, and one person went like that was the wrong one. And, I had already figured out which one it was, but I put my hand up looking. Additionally, I wanted to get right that you're supposed to wait till you're called on. Then the next kid went, etc. No, but I never even got to go. No, but all they did with that. But that's, I believe, when they tested me too at that time. And it was 12th grade reading comprehension. And I remember they asked questions when I first went in the class, and I answered, and I knew the questions. I mean, the answers. And the other kids really didn't. So what they did was put headphones on me and tell me to look out the window. And there's something that puts the names of other kids unnaturally in kids and in adults. And this is increasingly overt criminal enterprises and private ones, foreign intelligence and our own, confess things this way. Nature makes those confessions. And it's relative because this is where and how people have roles with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and KKK themes and black themes still. How they get away with it. These are people that have been putting fake things in databases together with KKK black themes and their uses of locations in their state capitals with gay themed, black themed, other differences, even sexual. They're using to hide uses of locations not legitimately. These are mass identity theft, fraud, slanders roles. These people mass pretend they pretend phobia. Part of the reason that's still there is because the undercover police forms are also intercultural, intracultural, fakes. They were raised that way. Certain type of victim / hyper victim. This breaching method employed your jobs. It's not going to be easy. You're going to be a certain type of victim, but don't make that description of it described exactly the way it wants and needs. Don't leave out the hyper foreign, too, because it's designed to keep countries A through Z blaming pointing at criminal foreign influences while leaving out and self-valuing, leaving out and having left out hypercriminal foreign influences. They are present with readings scientific of the religions. But see, this is prevented under the guise of science, because only remembered standing our science is abridged. is abridged constitution, abridged natures of debate. So then I went to one other campus for 1 year, and that has some people increasingly. Mark Violet is one of the people that brought up the name Michael Greco. I believe there's more than one Michael Greco. I had nothing to do with them. I think one of them might have been an instance with a cap that the school set up for an exception to make a fake exceptions are made where there are ties to people I know that I would from instances and that's it. And like for example, and all exceptions, and then there are people I don't know at all that they've been pretending other. And the only reason I know them because their names were repeated to me by people associated from other areas with the people that I barely, you know, just because you grew up, other people I grew up next to and never saw them once. I don't even know if they went to my same campus, where they went to private school or what. That's part of the reason I know they're lying about their motivations with the kid making threats on me, with his putting fake things in databases at Hartford Hospital, with people involved with gangs and guns and threats on me over here in Weathersfield. Before that, and that's recorded. And these are people in the cities that were doing this. They have roles with the murder of confessions tied to the murder of Greg Kyler. They have roles with names next to the body dumping spot of a serial killer. Roles with that serial killer. They have roles with the That's where the Justin Kovinskis, Mark Violet, and people he brought up the name of I don't know. And his wife went to my grammar school. I never had a class with her. She has people involved with the intelligence community that have been spreading lies, slanders against people as adults and kids as collusion that against people they don't even know, as people time fake motivations for it, as timed collusions with various natures of federal criminals, all these other countries at the same time, same ones. This is what's recorded here. So there's a DeMoro family, and there's that recorded capacity demonstrated. They have roles with the Schedule family. I never saw them around the Schedules, and they have something to do with Mr. Abruzzi, who is my fifth grade teacher. Has roles with people that were involved with. They made confessions of rapes tied to it, and their roles with drugs with the Abruzzi family, and medicines crimes with Hartford Hospital people, and these businesses and names next to them who have been put federal evidence as crimes with judges and prosecutors and their doctors. And those doctors and their patients and their family members, they all run in to hide lie progressions and to put fake transcripts. Transcripts. They even put loaded statements that if you don't respond, they're just going to put you in a fake response. You know, in other words, that's why people have motivations to speak to others. You know, when they don't like them. Think about it. Why would you want to go speak with others if you don't like them? If it's not going to be about that thing together, to keep they, and then in other words, doing to you personally. People are dishonest about their motivation. On a mass scale, these are people involved with subjects like criminal justice that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions wrought. The DeMoro family said that multiple DeMoro families said that there's a Finelli family involved with this, more than one Finelli family. And his wife, I don't even know her his wife, so I had a personal conversation with her in my life. I don't know her family's name. Has something to do with their roles with Walker Hill locations, with the DeMoro family, and with the Finelli families, and with others that know my name, I don't know their names, who are involved with prosecutors and judges' families, who've been planting evidences, identity thefts and frauds, taking pictures of people around others to make it look like they know them. And while they're using investigators remotely criminally foreign influence. Increasing these are probation. In other words, Please, Trinity College. There's a Joshua Stryker who's one of the ones involved in intercities with police departments with names on my street who have roles with an untimely death at Trinity College and with planting evidences at the same time as ones that have been doing it off the street of Trinity with spots next to Trinity College since I was a kid. It's judges and prosecutors also who had roles with confessions to me and requests for help before the World Trade Center attack. And the people on Covington Street in the Britain, they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed collusions with foreign and domestic intelligence and other natures of criminal enterprises on Zion Street next to Trinity College, involved with the names on Covington Street in the Britain. They have been involved with prosecutors and judges planting evidences, uses of investigations, investigators remotely criminally foreign influence. These are also people roles with the differences between the on-campus security and the off-campuses police forms at Central Connecticut State University. Increasingly, men and women of the intelligence community associated with Sabi Bajaria are also involved with abuses of kids of sick natures and with the military on off the state, on off this, with something to do with their roles on all sides of the community center and with spots next to the state capitol, who with people who are involved with investigations, investigators currently foreign influence, and people brought up by the confessions in the form of statements to me by people from Hartford Hospital who brought up names that have been pretending passions, emotions in the background, putting fake things in databases since I was a kid, years apart though. So in other words, you forget about those instances, and in other words, you don't forget about them. In other words, they're putting fake motivations regarding why they're doing that. Oh, because we wanted to be in this group. In other words, I didn't even. I wouldn't have changed what I did when I was a freshman. I had a friend from another town, and what they do too. Men and women are spying on little kids and using truths for lies. And these are people with the former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, who is involved with foreign and domestic medical families, so such as one's named Demaro, who also have people from um, Cuba involved with psychiatry. They put psychiatry with medical locations. They steal millions of dollars, single individuals, from Hartford residents and from Connecticut residents. And there are only like 350 streets, 500 something streets in Hartford. And there are not even that many houses on the streets. But so, in other words, these are police families too. They put a lot of people in jail. These are judges and courts, prosecutors, family. They put a lot of people. The people that run the jails. These are people on off the state corrections offices. They're people with the military named Dave, associated with a Joe DeMauro and a Ray Collo next to the state corrections offices, who have been planting evidences at Connecticut boxing locations. There are people involved with Cindy Hook campuses who said they have roles with a Lions Den in Cromwell, and they said loaded statements. I didn't respond to it. I never went there. One time I hit a bag there and had no communications with anybody. Without anybody there. One guy went like that to me. In other words, nice. I had no problems with anybody. Vaccine. That's just thing. So there's a Chuck Casper who's one of the ones involved with some doctors. I think it was a Doctor Dingleberry or Dewberry. They have both those names that work at Hartford Hospital. And one I believe was the Dewberry was one of the ones that was brought up by Anthony Agman, who also has roles with the Leahy family and with some Mendez police that are further involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, drugs, and medicine crimes with them, and drug crimes with them at the same time. These are involved with female, black and white female judges involved putting fake things in databases, involved with the security also of the internet at the courts, involved in at the Weathersfield police station. There's a Joshua Schumack and his mother are involved with a Mike Pandol, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed also with a Mark Violet, that they have roles with Joshua Schumack and his mother with federal crimes in Weathersfield Police, some KKK themed military and black themed military, putting fake things in databases together. And then I don't even know all their names. So these are people that were involved with forging and switching names while they're involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, also black and KKK themed. Also, they recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed their roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting evidences on Zion Street in Hartford next to Trinity College. So get them on paper, one name and sequence. Let's go. Oh.